Hi, I'm John Sweeney. I'm the Director of Stewardship Development at Vestavia Hills United Methodist Church, and I've been invited to reflect on our new devotional series. This week, we're looking at the word powerlessness. There's a lot that goes on in my brain when I think about that. But one story that sticks out in particular, we've had a family group of houses up on a lake in New Hampshire for decades. I remember spending my summers up there. I learned how to sail up there. I learned how to water ski. Lots of cousins around and aunts and uncles. But my dad helped my uncle rebuild an old wooden sailboat. It was a Lightning. It was an incredibly fast boat at times when the wind was right. But our house was located very close to a public swim area, a big spillway area, a big dam. It was a beached up area. And I remember I was very young and my dad said he wanted to take us sailing in the Lightning. And we got in the boat and we cast off from our mooring and we raised the sails and we went the wrong direction. We started sailing dangerously close to the swim area. We were a bit out of control. The wind had filled the sails, the rudder was steering the correct way, but the boat just moved the wrong direction. Turns out we had forgotten to drop the centerboard down. The centerboard casts that lower weight that allows the boat to not move sideways in one way or the other, but straight forward. And over time, we laughed a lot about it. It was one of those stories where my dad jumped into the water to try to push the boat away from the oncoming swimmers. But at the time, it was very scary. We had no power. We had no ability to move forward. And as soon as that centerboard came down, the boat was in proper working order, and off we went as the folks on the beach laughed at us. But it made me think about what it means to be powerless. You know, sometimes powerless has a negative connotation to it. The anxieties that come with not having power. Well, maybe there's some comfort in that. You know, I had the wonderful opportunity to travel to Israel just before the world went down on our lockdown. And we visited the mount where Jesus preached the Beatitudes. And in reflecting on powerlessness, I couldn't help but think about those that are mentioned in those words found. I'm looking at Matthew 5. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger for thirst and righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. And it goes on. We know those words, but I can almost imagine hearing Jesus saying, blessed are the powerless. Because there's a sense of humility, perhaps, that powerlessness brings. Things that are happening beyond our control, outside of our power, and yet we have to figure out how to deal with them. It's like literally when those storms blew through last weekend and my house right down the street, the lights went out. We were literally without power. We were powerless. There was nothing that I could do to turn the lights back on. I can call the power company and let them know, but other than that, I can't climb a pole and reattach a downed power line or reset an area that's been knocked out. So what do? We light candles. We put our phones down. The TV is off. The internet is off. And just like we have found ourselves during these lockdown pandemic times, we begin conversations with family and my spouse, my wife, my children, even my dog with the thunder. He'll come right up and curl up in my lap. But it's in those moments of not being able to control anything that sometimes some of the best things happen. We were not able to control that sailboat, but when we were able to figure out why we were out of control, we dropped the centerboard and we slowly powered forward. It's kind of like what Jesus is saying in these Beatitudes, that blessed are those who are somewhat out of control. They don't have something that perhaps others do, in this case, power. But there's a blessing in that. And Jesus reminds us of that in these beautiful words of the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who are, in this case, powerless, for there is something wonderful that God promises us in the humility and the simpleness that comes without being powerful. You know, it also reminds me my lake stories. You may hear a lot of these lake stories over time. I apologize if they get old, but our houses are also situated in a cove, and since there's only one way in and you have to come out the same way, the powers that be have created that as a no-wake zone. So when motorboats come screaming across the lake, and just as they get to our cove, they have to pull their power way back and slow down to a very low, very slow motion through the cove. It's nice because it doesn't create waves, but at the same time, it allows, you can see the power pull out of that boat, but the boat still has power. It's able to move and to be in control, but it doesn't have power. And maybe that's what it really means when we are powerless. We're not completely without power. We're just more able to move and to adapt, perhaps. I don't know, powerlessness. It's scary sometimes, but I really come back to those Beatitudes that God has something special when those of us who are powerless go to Him. We go in prayer, we come in fellowship and in communion and in worship, expressing that powerlessness and that need to be guided, often as we dropped that centerboard on that sailboat that time. So I share these thoughts with you as we tell the story of powerlessness. My sailboat sails were full of wind and the rudder was pointed in the right direction, but we still wandered off. We need that centering, that stability that comes, in our case, with the centerboard, but in our case, generally, theologically, that comes in the centering that we find in God and in those Beatitudes, that there's a blessing in that powerlessness. I hope God remains with you this day and forevermore. Blessings to you all.